gold and silver are barbarous relics, not worth holding, not worth keeping. But gosh darn it, look at Venezuela. I wonder if they told them in Venezuela, Ron, before they went through their hyperinflation, these are barbarous relics, don't hold on to these. But we know now that people were using these to buy food because of the hyperinflation. So they were using an investment that they had made. And once again, this wasn't about becoming rich. This was about survival. This was about eating, feeding your family. That's what gold and silver became in Venezuela.
If you're invested in silver or gold, you're also invested in the value of the dollar, at least from the perspective of the fact that if the dollar goes down in value, you want your silver and gold to protect yourself. Will it happen quickly? Will it happen slowly? Today, we're joined by special guest Patrick Holland from the Missouri Freedom Initiative. We're going to talk about what's going on with the dollar. If it feels like to you things are crazy out there, you're not alone. Some people say we're living in a fantasy world. Let's hear from Pat.
Hi there, Ron. Thank you for having me back again. Good to see Smitty back there as well. He can't see me, though, unfortunately, but I see you, Smitty.
Smitty the Silver Bear, waiting for $85 silver. And if the dollar continues on the path it is it not inevitable, Pat, that at some point we will see $85 silver?
Absolutely, we will. It'll be through a process of inflation, big inflation or hyperinflation. For those who have long memories, roughly about 10 years ago, and maybe it was 9 years ago, Venezuela began a process of inflation, which quickly became hyperinflation. It took less than a year. And the interesting thing is how much these little shinies were worth in Venezuela when that happened, when their currency hyperinflated, the bolivar. And so keep that in mind. And there you go. Do you have something? Oh, there you go. So
that's a chart of the price of silver, I'll interject, in Venezuela. And if it was about 36 bolivar in December of 2018, maybe a little higher than that, but basically it went up by only 27. Silver only went up by 27,700%, or 277 times in the matter of basically a year or two. Sorry to interrupt you, Pat.
No, you're good. And this is really important for people to recognize, because the stories coming out of Venezuela were something like this. And we're going to talk about the dollar in a second here. You get done with your day at work. You work maybe 8 or 10 hours. And what you would do on Friday is take your backpack with you to work, because that's where you were filling cash from your employer at the end of the week, compensation for your work. And what they would do, and by the way, there are stories about this online, they'd fill a backpack full of cash, bolivars, go to the grocery store instantly after work because prices were going up several times per day, and get as much food as they possibly could. And as an example, I wish we had the turkey example, because 1 ounce of silver would get you a turkey in Venezuela during the worst of that hyperinflation. Or it was something like 1.2 million bolivars. So if you had the foresight, do you have the turkey chart?
No, go ahead.
Okay, gosh darn it. I wish we had that.
Well, here, Pat, I have to be honest. I do have a turkey chart, but it's the price of, that's the price of silver. Yeah, in Turkey. But same situation, just to demonstrate it's not just Venezuela.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. So that actually serves the purpose for what I was getting at. But if you have these little bright and shinies, gold or silver, before your currency inflates or hyperinflates, basically it keeps its purchasing power. So that's the neat thing about it. And basically you can get a turkey today with the with a ounce of silver, or you can spend about $30, $40 for a turkey in a grocery store. And so at any rate, it's something for people to keep in mind that at some point in America, that turkey may be, this is going to sound crazy, gang, but we're seeing it in other countries too. You just showed us the lira. I was talking about the Bolivar. We could go through the Zimbabwe dollar. At some point, that turkey is probably going to be $1 million.
Yeah.
And so, or an ounce of silver, just like it was in Venezuela. So I know that sounds real. It's America, Pat. That can never happen here. Well, they're starting on that. And keep in mind, the more money we print to send to the Ukraine and to Israel, it's actually affecting our economy right here, because we're not actually just giving them money. Most of it is actually hardware. You know, it's guns, grenades, tanks. That's built right here in the United States of America. So that money's being spent in our economy right here. And remember now, when they give 90 billion to the Ukraine, that's just the beginning. It goes to the hardware manufacturers. They build whatever, you know, is ordered by the US government to send to the Ukraine, and they spend it into the economy. And then it gets fractionally reserved because it ends up touching banks. And then that 90 billion can become, you know, 800 billion really quick, you know, through the fractional reserves. Well, not necessarily really quick, but within a year, maybe two on the outside. It can grow to 10, 20, 30, 40 times its size through fractional reserve lending. That exacerbates the inflation problem right here at home.
Yep. And I want to point out Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Turkey, even Egypt recently.
Mm-hmm.
If you dig into all of these countries that had a major devaluation in their currency, hyperinflationary type environments, you see one common theme, Pat, and that is fiscal mismanagement, meaning the government spent more than they brought in, and monetary mismanagement, meaning money printing. And do you think that, because you said this, so I want to circle back to this, that most Americans think, well, that could never happen in America. Well, that is happening in America. We can check the box. I think you would agree that we have fiscal mismanagement. We can certainly check the box that we have monetary mismanagement. And isn't the United States, even though we are the biggest, but we are still subject to the laws of mathematics?
We are. And if this were World War II, we'd be going to Zelensky and saying, send us your gold. If you want any more hardware, you send us your gold, because we don't have confidence in your currency over there. Why isn't Zelensky just printing up cash from his central bank to buy all the stuff that he wants? He's not.
Nobody wants it.
Well, that's correct. He is on an eternal worldwide grift tour. And by the way, this isn't meant to be political. I'm talking about the financial aspects of this. So, I mean, if you're for the war in Ukraine, God love you. If you're against the war in Ukraine, God love you. I'm not here for that. I'm talking about the financial aspects of what America is doing to help the Ukraine and how it will hurt us. So it helps the Ukraine and it hurts us. And that's just a fact. These are just laws of financial physics.
First Mining Gold is a development company advancing two of the largest gold projects in Canada, Springpole in Ontario and Duparquet located in Quebec. Each already has 5 million ounces of gold reserves, but exploration initiatives are underway at both projects to find even more gold. First Mining is well-financed, has zero debt, and owns an interest in 4 additional Canadian gold development projects.
Historically, in times of war, including World War I and World War II, when a country needed to buy things, when the British needed to buy things during World War II, when the French, whoever needed to buy things, and they were buying them from the United States because we weren't yet directly involved in the war. And even when we were involved in the war, we didn't take their currency as payment, as I understand it. We said, sorry, guys, we want your gold, which is why at the end of World War II, we had the majority of the world's gold, and Bretton Woods came about, and we could go down that path forever. But to me, what's interesting about that is it just shows that when push comes to shove and people aren't sure that of what's going to happen and there's uncertainty in the world, everybody always goes back to gold.
That's right. And it's particularly, I guess it's timely to start talking about this, because look at what Eastern central banks are doing. They're hoarding gold. They're hoarding gold. That lump of rock, that the Federal Reserve in the United States is saying, well, that's a barbarous relic. We don't do that anymore. We're more advanced than that now. Look at what the Eastern central banks are doing.
Yeah.
Because they know intrinsic value actually still matters. They know this. Yeah. We don't. We have forgotten it. It's been bred out of the Western civilization. Gold and silver are barbarous relics, not worth holding, not worth keeping. But gosh darn it, look at Venezuela. I wonder if they told them in Venezuela, Ron, before they went through their hyperinflation, these are barbarous relics, don't hold on to these. But we know now that people were using these to buy food because of the hyperinflation. So they were using an investment that they had made. And once again, this wasn't about becoming rich. This was about survival. This was about eating, feeding your family. That's what gold and silver became in Venezuela. And those who had gold and silver, in fact, the stories I remember reading when it was getting really bad out there is folks with gold and silver were actually using their gold and silver to get out of the country. Yeah. Because they were going from, and once again, this is a political statement, but they were shifting from socialism into communism. And so that's what happens when your currency fails in many cases, particularly if you already have a government that has a proclivity for totalitarianism. And unfortunately, we have that here.
I have an interesting question for you. What if there's this group of countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates? Those are the 10 BRICS countries. What if we get to a point, we talked about World War II when the United States was kind of in a very good position, let's say, and we demanded gold for payment. Is it possible? Could you imagine in 5 or 10 years that we get to a point here in the United States where we're saying to China, hey, we really need to stock our Walmarts up with, plastic toys and goods, and we're telling the Saudis we really need oil, where they say to us, kind of like we've said to other countries in the past, where they say to the United States, that's great, but we don't want your paper money, we want your gold. Could you imagine where that's the kind of part of this, and it's a process, right? It could happen really quickly, but it's a process whereby gold gets revalued, and of course silver benefits from that as well.
Yeah. If you're looking to buy gold, silver, or platinum, do yourself a favor and check out Pimbex, the online precious metals bullion dealer and sponsor of Ron's Basement. I was a happy customer before they offered to support the channel. You'll find they have the best prices, quality, and service. I think Pimbex is best, and you will too. And be sure to tell them that you're from Ron's Basement.
And by the way, that's not something that is, I would say, for people to wrap your head around this. This is not an example that was just pulled out of the air. This kind of stuff does happen to countries when their currencies fail. It doesn't matter if it's China or if it's Saudi Arabia. In fact, and Ron, we may have talked about this before, but I was on with another YouTuber about a year ago, a little more than a year ago. And by the way, we have our 1-year anniversary this month, by the way, Ron. It's 1 year I've been coming on your channel now.
It's been a wonderful year.
It has. But I was on with the Talk Junkies, which is another YouTube channel. And what I was talking about was Saudi Arabia taking gold for oil. And holy mackerel, did I get flamed on that for that quick little short, clip that he took out of a longer video that ended up on TikTok, had over 20 million views. And folks were upset. They were saying, no, that's not true. There were people from Saudi Arabia chiming in, no, that's not true. We don't take gold. We just take dollars. The fact is, I was about 2 months early. That actually did happen. It was a Russian transaction. And so they were using the SGE, basically in conjunction with Saudi Arabia. And there was gold transferred to Saudi Arabia for Russia.
I can absolutely confirm that. I had dinner with a high-level Canadian banker in Toronto 3 months ago, and he explained how that is happening right now. Saudi Arabia sells oil to China for Chinese yuan, and then Saudi Arabia immediately converts that yuan to gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. That's
exactly right.
That's the mechanism by which it happens. I want to interject a few more interesting points as you talk about this gold becoming reclaiming its spot as this I like to call it the new world hegemony. If you think about the central banks, right? Let's take a step back. Everybody says, "Oh, central banks are buying a record amount of gold," which they are, but it's very interesting if you take a step back and look at that and realize the central banks, they're the insiders, right? The world central banks control the monetary system, the fiscal systems. They're the insiders. They're the most sophisticated people out there. Everybody forgets 2 years ago, right after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, when the ruble was going to become rubble, according to our president at the time, and Russia was going to fall into a pit of despair, that the Russians, for a short period of time, what did they do? They backed the ruble with gold. Everybody forgets about that, okay? And the final thing I'll say is we get news out of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe saying we're tired of dealing with U.S. dollars. We're tired of dealing with the IMF. We're going to back our currency with gold. I mean, that's like breaking news that just came out. I mean, gold is where people go. Sorry, I interrupted you, Pat.
No, you're absolutely right. That's where they go. It historically for 1,000 years, have we advanced to the point where we can actually dismiss the intrinsic value of gold and silver? The answer is no. This stuff, gang, silver. Now, I like gold too, but I have very little gold. I'm more of a silver guy, just to be straight up with you guys. So I collect silver. But this is so incredibly valuable for industry in the United States. It is incredibly important, and it's not replaceable. That's how critical silver is to basically our society today, our civilization today. And I'm kicking a dead horse, but if we woke up tomorrow and all the gold was gone, life wouldn't really change much for us when it comes to industry. If we woke up tomorrow and all the silver was gone, we'd be back to the 1860s.
We got big problems.
Fortuna Silver Mines is a global intermediate gold and silver producer. Since 2005, Fortuna's best-in-class management has delivered impressive growth and profits. Fortuna's solid financial position and operational expertise allows for performance in any precious metals price cycle and provides a foundation from which to harvest great profits in more favorable metals markets. Investing in Fortuna is an investment in quality, long-term, sustainable production of in-demand precious and base metals.
Thank you for joining us in the basement. I think we've covered some interesting components to what is really going on in the world right now. But more importantly, because basement dwellers are silver and gold enthusiasts, to me, after talking to you, it becomes really clear. I feel secure and safe in investing in precious metals. So thank you so much. If people want to learn more about you, about your organization, they can go to mofree.org. Is there anything I forgot to talk about with you today, Pat?
Nope, that's it. Other than digital currency, gang. I meant it's the central bank digital currency. It's coming. This is your protection when they eventually want to take you to a cashless society. This is how you protect yourself. And I know folks will say that's nonsense. They'll ban silver and gold. Not with we pass our law here in the state of Missouri. We'll still be transacting in gold and silver while many other states, are trapped into a central bank digital currency because they didn't take the time to do something like this, which is actually get state laws done. We covered this in another video. 15 states are moving towards gold and silver legislation this year. So get on that bandwagon if you're in one of those states. Watch that video we did. Thank you very much for having me back, Ron. I appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, Pat. And we will look forward to seeing you again in the future in the basement. And I'm saying that on behalf of myself, the viewer, and Smitty, the Silver Bear. We'll see you soon.
Take care, Ron. God bless you, man.